Welcome to Undercurrents of Romance, the show that celebrates every subgenre of romantic fiction. In each episode, I peel back the layers of your favorite love stories and chat with the talented authors who bring them to life. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. Now, let's dive in with today's guest. Hello, Romantics. I'm here with author Michael Thompson to talk about his magical realism romance, All the Perfect Days. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks, Tracy. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I have to ask, I did notice that this is your second book or your sophomore book, as we say in the business. How was
hmm
that experience?
It was, you hear about the second book and the challenges that authors have with writing their second book. And I had every single one of those challenges that is there to be had.
You
Look,
were not
it's
immune, huh?
no, I was hoping I might be, and that was not the case. No, my first book, How to Be Remembered, came out in 2023, and I had actually written the first draft of All the Perfect Days, my new one, about 18 months earlier. I had written it kind of while How to Be Remembered was going through all of the production process and just working its way through, because there's long periods of downtime throughout that, and I needed something to kind of move on to focus on. And so I'd written the first draft of All the Perfect Days very quickly, and then I had to rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it. I had a very, 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 very patient editor, who just very gently took me through some things and just talked me through the fact and reassured me multiple times that this is not uncommon for authors with their second book to suddenly
Yeah.
hit a few of these walls. And I think part of it was that when I wrote my first book, I didn't know any of the rules because
Yeah.
my background is journalism and I've always written short form non-fiction. So you're writing kind of short pieces for news. You were writing kind of 150 words or 90 seconds worth for a radio report on something that's happened in politics or a crime or something like that. So when I sat down to write my first novel, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the rules, which was actually really liberating, which was
Yeah.
great. I just wrote, and it was terrific. When I sat down to write my second one, I was a lot more aware of what you should and shouldn't do and the expectations on that. And I think I found it really quite restrictive and constricting. And so it just didn't quite work the way it needed to. And thankfully, I had the most patient editor in the world, at Sourcebooks, who helped me through this. And we got to this point where suddenly I'm like, oh, if only I had realized this at the start, it would have been so much easier. And where we got to at the end, it was just it was perfect. It was exactly
Yeah.
where I had envisaged the story going.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you had an editor who helped you through that and had your back through the whole process. That's
Makes a
wonderful.
big difference, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing journey? And then, besides being an author, I understand you're also a podcaster. So if you'd like to talk about that a little bit too, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, my as I mentioned, my background is journalism. I worked for quite a while, 15 years or so in radio. I live in Sydney in Australia, and I have worked in radio throughout my entire career as a producer, as a journalist, all those kinds of roles. That finished up in the end of 2019, and I had a little break, and I thought, you know what, I've been in this one role in radio for quite some time. I'm going to take a little break before I find a new job. Unfortunately, what that meant was that I was going to set out looking for new jobs in February, March of 2020, which was just
Perfect
just
timing. Great, great
great
timing.
timing because there were so many jobs available at the start of the
Yeah.
pandemic. And so what that meant was that I uh, thought this is the perfect opportunity to do something that I thought I wouldn't get a chance to do until retirement. Uh, I'm going to write a novel. Without knowing how that would go, I had an idea, and I just thought I'll sit down and I'm going to see how this goes because I've always been writing, but as I said, it's always been kind of for news. And so sat down and started writing that. At the same time, I needed something to pay the bills as well. And so a couple of former colleagues and I set up a podcast called Fear and Greed. And it's a business news podcast. And it comes out every single day. And here we are now, kind of 5 years later. And we are still going every single day it comes out. And we've had something like
It's amazing.
20 something million downloads or something
Oh,
across that
wow.
time, that it's just become this business now that sustains us. But what that means is that my life is very much split between writing and podcasting, and two very different worlds, because I'm
Yeah.
writing really magical realism with kind of with romance elements to it, and then flipping the switch to writing and talking about business and finance and what companies are
Yeah.
doing and what's happening
Right,
on Wall
left, right,
Street.
left.
And you are absolutely right. It is using two halves of the brain that really feel like they never actually meet anywhere in the middle. So it is great. But what we've been able to do then is kind of carve out this existence that really has journalism in it, has podcasting, has kind of communicating to an audience, but also has this really fantastic creative side of being able to write novels that are completely unrelated to what I'm doing in my other job, and books that really have the ability to connect with people, because I'm writing essentially speculative fiction or magical realism, where you are taking our real world. We are taking the society, the world that we live in, and just tweaking one little thing. Just make it just a
Yeah.
little bit different. That something extraordinary is happening to somebody. In my first book, that was about then a boy who is forgotten every year on his birthday by everybody who knows him. That was How to Be Remembered, and that was in kind of happening in our world. And this poor kid grew up to be a man who just was forgotten every year, and his goal was to just to have what everyone else has, and to kind of have a relationship and have a job, and that was very much had very strong romantic elements to it. And then my new one, All the Perfect Days, is again set in our world. It's in a small town, like the small towns that I grew up in, and the main character, Charlie Knight, is a doctor. He is just your typical kind of family physician, but he's in his late 30s. He feels like he is just treading water in his career in this town that he grew up in, and he wants to get out, and he's going to get out, and go and do the kind of the big city job essentially that he had intended to do a number of years earlier. But then something extraordinary happens, and this is where the magical realism element comes in, that he develops this ability to know exactly how many days his patients have left alive, which is an extraordinary ability for anyone to have,
Yeah.
but for a doctor to have, it just adds this little element to it.
Yeah.
And the challenge for Charlie is that in a small town, the doctor is not just kind of treating anonymous patients in, say, a hospital emergency room. He is treating his friends, he's treating his family, and the romance element is that he is trying to avoid treating Genevieve, the girl that he still loves, who's come back to town, because if he does treat her, if she even asks him for so much as kind of to have a look at her sore ankle or something like that, he is
Yeah.
going to find out how long she has left alive as well, how many days, and it's not something that he wants to know about her. He doesn't want to know it about anyone that he loves, and that's the magical realism, the speculative component to
Yeah,
that
because that's a
book.
trigger for him, right? Once he starts asking or they start talking about a
Yeah.
particular medical issue, that's the trigger that starts him down this where he learns about their
Absolutely, yeah.
number.
As soon as
Yeah,
he starts
yeah,
to treat someone, whether it is someone in his office, in his surgery, who has come in for treatment for a sore throat or an earache or anything, or a sore back or anything like that, as soon as they ask him about it and they ask him to look at it, then he learns how many days they have left, and likewise that if it happens at the while he's having a drink after work at a bar, or if he's kind of having walking down the street in the supermarket, and someone comes up to him, this is what happens to a small town doctor, that all of a sudden he's standing there in the aisles of the grocery store, and he is suddenly learning how long kind of his elderly neighbor has left. And it's what he does with that knowledge. That's the
Hmm.
challenge here. Is he going to try and help people live? Well, what he sets out to do initially is to try and help people fulfill their lives, make sure that every single day has meaning. But there is a tragic element to it as well, which I won't spoil.
Yeah.
But it may
Yeah,
not
we
be the
won't
gift that he
spoil.
thinks it is.
Yeah. And because we don't want to spoil it, I when that came about in the story, I was like, wow, I never even thought that that could be a negative to this gift that he has. So that was quite a shocker that you threw in there for us. So that was much appreciated because I was like, oh, yeah, you gotta be careful there.
Excellent. And the thing is that this is that I'm I'm glad that it took you by surprise. It's meant to be. Uh, my books do have this. It's not necessarily a dark undercurrent, but it is quite a serious kind of
Mhm.
undercurrent to it. That it does feel as though that things can go wrong. And as I was saying with my first book, it was quite a. Um, it's quite sad, that idea of this boy that's forgotten every
Yeah.
year on his birthday, and he's forgotten by his parents when he turns one, and so on. And in this one, in All the Perfect Days, there are these elements of kind of, if you knew this about your family members, if you knew this about your elderly parents, or you knew it about kind of a child that you were helping after they skinned their knee or something, kind of that's information that nobody should have, and it's almost too much responsibility for one person.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so there is this, it's quite a serious kind of undercurrent to it, and it's almost a this big question of, would you want to know? And if you did know that about somebody else, would you tell them? Would you try to help them if you could see that they were kind of wasting their life and just treading water? Would you try and help them kind of live their best life, knowing that their time might be running out next week?
Yeah.
Or do you just kind of leave it up to fate and say, you know what, I'm not going to get involved? And so that's some of the questions that really I think I would like readers to explore as they're reading through.
And I think that you just answered what I consider my biggie question for the show here is that's one of the things that I like to dive into with authors is trying to figure out what their stories, because it's a romance podcast, right? So what is that second beating heart of the story that's kind of flowing beneath the lover's story, the lover's journey? What is that undercurrent? And I think, maybe you might have a different answer for that, but that felt like what you just said, that felt like what the undercurrent was uh, between between
I
Charlie and
think you're
Jen's story.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely it. That it is the magical realism undercurrent of it all. It is the bigger question of, would you want to know? If you knew it, would you do anything? Would you do anything
Yeah.
about it? And I think it is inevitable. I certainly was thinking about it as I was writing this. Kind of, would
Yeah.
I want to know? And I came to the conclusion, I don't think I would. I don't think I would want to
Yeah.
know. Kind of
It'd be tough.
when my time is up, because otherwise it puts some extraordinary pressure on you to try and kind of make every single moment count. And what I kind of realized as I was writing this, that and I try to convey this through the book, that in the end, the thing that matters most is the connections that you have with other people, and and the time that you spend with the people in your life, and the relationships that you build. That this is kind of what
Mhm.
gives those days meaning. That it's not necessarily about the big kind of grand gesture and ticking everything off your bucket list. That in the end, if you get to the end of your life, whether it's kind of, and everything is kind of measured in days in this book, that if it's in kind of 10,000 days time, that you can kind of look back and go, I have actually lived a very full, kind of meaningful life, then I think
Mhm.
that's the big kind of tick. But that would definitely be the undercurrent in there.
Yeah.
This big question of, would you want to know? And if you did know, what would you do? Would you tell someone else? And would it change the way that you are living?
Yeah, especially with again, no spoilers here, but especially with the little twist that you put towards the end there. You know, about the gift. So I want to talk about it so badly, but I know I can't. Um,
We
so
need to have
I'll
a
just leave it
second
at
edition
that.
with
Yeah.
full of spoilers. Yes.
Yeah, we'll have a spoiler edition for sure. So what was the inspiration? This is such a unique idea. And for your first book too, it sounds like. So what was the inspiration for this particular
It,
concept?
it came about. I was thinking all of my ideas come to me in the shower, when I'm in the just
It's the
having a
best
shower.
place to think, isn't
It
it?
really is. I don't know what it is. It's the flowing water, it's the heat, and all of a sudden, just these
Yeah.
ideas start coming. And as
You
a
go into
result, the
auto
showers.
drive or something in there. I don't know what it
Uh,
is. Yeah.
yeah, and as a result, we are constantly running out of hot water because I get an idea, and then kind of 40 minutes have passed, and the power bill is through the roof. The hot water and gas bills are
Oh.
through the roof. But anyway, it's where all the ideas come from. I was in, I was in the shower, and I was actually thinking about a conversation that I had had with a colleague a few years ago. Um, and that colleague on that day had just been diagnosed with an illness, and he called me up and he said, "Look, I'm in the best of hands. I'm going to keep working, and everything's going to be okay." And it wasn't okay. And a couple of
Mm.
years later, he
Yeah.
passed away. And I then was kind of reflecting on this, and this is quite a while ago that had happened. And I was just thinking back to that initial conversation I'd had on the day when he was diagnosed, and thought, if he had known that it wasn't going to work out the way he was hoping, and that he only had a limited amount of time left, would he have then spent those remaining few years doing exactly what he
Mm.
did? Would he have continued to work every day, or would he have tried to kind of tick
Yeah.
off a bucket list and kind of travel
Mhm.
the world and do all of these extraordinary things? And I, I I don't know the answer to it, then I was thinking, you know what? He loved the job that he was doing, and being around family and friends, and maybe that was actually what he would have wanted to do. And it was this
Mhm.
impossible question of kind of, would you change the path that you were taking if and you knew when that time was up? And so that was what led to this idea. I'm like, okay, because it has been uh, covered before, this idea of kind of knowing what is going to happen to your. It's hardly a new idea, but the way I thought this could be done differently would be, who would make it a very interesting story to know that information. And I thought a doctor, because
Mm.
they are the ones who are dealing with mortality on a daily basis
Yeah.
anyway. And would a doctor be able to use that information to help treat people, or would they see it more as like a social role that they need to fulfill, like a counseling role, and help people kind of live their best lives? And I thought, actually, if it's a small town doctor, they already know the secrets of the town. They
Yeah.
know everything about everyone, basically, because the doctor is the only person that you're completely honest with about everything that's going on to you, with you. And and yeah, I thought that's the way to do it. If the doctor knows this, and he is struggling with that, and it bleeds out of his professional life into his personal life, because a small town GP is treating family and friends and everyone. I thought that is probably the best way to do this, and it we could have a lot of fun with it, but also it would be quite a meaningful story, I think, to tell, in a new way of exploring an idea that has been kind of covered extensively in the past.
Yeah, I did love that small town atmosphere that you created, all the complexities included in there, and I was curious if that had if you came by that information through personal experience, and you'd mentioned that you had lived in small towns throughout your life, and so I thought you did a great job with that because sometimes small towns are portrayed as cozy and friendly and just all of these nice, warm and fuzzy type feelings. But there is this underlayment of everybody knows everybody's business, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
No, no, it's not. It's not. No one really has any secrets, and
Yeah.
those who do have secrets think they're not known by anyone, and they actually are. And yeah. So I lived in kind of small towns. I grew up in a town with about 1,000 people in it, and then moved to another one slightly larger that has 3,500 people. So kind of stepping on up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is extraordinary that you're absolutely right. There is this perception of small towns as being idyllic and just this perfect little environment in which
Mhm.
everything is relaxed and laid back and everyone is friendly towards each other. And it's not the case. That there is kind of small town politics and there is all the dynamics that you would find in a larger town and a larger city, they are still there,
Yeah.
except you just don't have the anonymity that you have in a bigger city. And so if anything, it could be worse. But particularly kind of in this story, in Charlie's case, this is still the town where his parents still live. Um, and so he has this element of an adult child living in the same town as his adult parents, and a very complicated, complex relationship, particularly with his
Yeah.
mother, which is explored throughout the book as well, which is again complicated by the fact that there aren't that many people in town, and his mum knows everyone
Yeah.
and talks to everyone,
Right.
and so Charlie does find himself a little bit on the outer there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Charlie and Jen's relationship, I thought was a great example of the damage that conflict avoidance can do to people's lives. Without getting into any spoilers, how did you craft their relationship arc? Did you come to it kind of naturally, or did you have to map that out?
It 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 came together. It just
Okay.
it just kind of came together. I don't do a lot of I know that there's the planners and the pantsers, and I'm certainly more
Yeah.
in the pantsers side of things where I just sit down and start writing and see where it goes. But their relationship, I knew was that they had been together in the past, and this is in terms of tropes, because I know that we like to talk tropes on this
Yeah.
podcast. That really this is a second chance romance, that
Yeah.
they and this is established very early on in the book, that these two, Charlie and Jen, have got a lot of history. They have had something
Yeah.
has driven them apart in the past, and they have spent now 7 years apart, living basically on opposite sides of the world.
Mhm.
And there is something there that has caused them both a lot of pain, and something that not only caused them to separate, but to move as far away from each other as they could. And so this is the process of kind of working back through that and discovering what that was, and also whether they are potentially going to be able to overcome
Mhm.
that division between them. And I really loved writing their relationship, because they
Mhm.
have such a um, when they are together, there is an ease to the relationship, and I actually love that these are two people who are so comfortable with each other, that you can just see they are supposed to be together. That this was a relationship that, had had this incident 7 years not taken place, they would have
Yeah.
been together forever and celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary in
Right.
many years' time. And they are meant to be a couple. They have been driven apart, and now the other thing that is causing them challenges in their relationship is this gift that Charlie has, and he is terrified about
Mm.
learning how long Jen has left, because it's just information that he doesn't want about this person that he very clearly still loves.
Mhm.
And so I loved writing their relationship, and just that the conversations between them, and the fact that they have so much shared history, and that she knows him in a way that nobody else does, and knows his family and the small town dynamics, and she gets it, but she has been away and she has come back, so she's got a new perspective, a different perspective, and whether or not they're going to be able to overcome these challenges to get back together.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's like you said, it's a great relationship. It was those scenes with them together. I really enjoyed those scenes, and the whole fence thing was kind of a fun treat in there too. So yeah, no, I thought that you did a great job with building
Thank
that
you.
relationship. You could tell that there was something before, but then you had to build the relationship again in this book, and so I thought that was really well done.
Thank you. And it's an interesting kind of challenge to how do you build a relationship that is based on an old foundation,
Hmm.
and how then you make it feel like it is new and they are rediscovering this. And I found
Yeah.
that to be quite fun to write
Yeah.
that element.
Yeah.
And particularly kind of there is an instance um, where Jen accompanies Charlie to a family gathering,
Yeah.
a party, and all of a sudden you see kind of this why they are meant to be together, because
Hmm.
she like they are two halves of a whole, and she is the person there. She is supporting him
Yeah.
in a most extraordinary way. And you're like, why aren't you two together? Just hurry up and get together.
I know.
Basically, I shouldn't be impatient with
Right. Put us
myself. I
out of our
wrote it. If I
misery.
wanted to get them together, we could have just done it earlier. So.
Well, as we wrap up here a little bit, one of the questions I like to ask is, have you read a romance book or not, or just any kind of book that you've read recently that you'd recommend and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of romance, there is a novel that came out at the same time as mine in Australia, and then again in the US a short time later. It is called The Last Love Note by Emma Gray, and
Okay.
it has been very successful around the world now, and by an Australian author, and it is heartbreaking.
Ah,
It is about basically love after loss. It is um, about a woman who has lost her husband way too young, and about kind of finding new love after that. And it is
mm,
heartbreaking, but it is funny as well. That Emma is a fantastic writer, able to kind of almost this um, like a rom-com style,
yeah.
but with this really heartfelt grief underneath it, and it's actually um, it parallels a lot of what happened to Emma in real life, that she lost her husband
Uh,
far too young,
wow.
and you can just read that kind of grief going into the pages, but also the hopefulness of what comes next it comes through the page. So, The Last Love Note by Emma Gray would be definitely be my
Okay.
recommendation.
Great. I will add that to the show notes. That sounds a little bit like one of the authors I had on the podcast early on, Jennifer Hartman, The Wrong Heart. A very similar situation where she lost her husband and then is trying to find love again, and a very visceral, a lot of visceral feelings as you read that book too. So that's great. I'm glad because I loved Jennifer's book, and that sounds like I would really love that book, Emma's book as well.
I suspect you will. I haven't met anyone who's read it that didn't enjoy it. It's but it is probably have the tissues handy, I suspect.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, great. Well, before we go, can you give us a hint about what's coming up next? Any exciting projects that you're working on that you can talk about?
I have just finished the second draft of my next book. So again, it is a magical realism style, where it is our world, and something strange is happening to one person, and so that is just going through the motions now with that one. But it is it is so much fun to be back into the writing side of it and just exploring this, and I'm doing something different with this book that I haven't done before in terms of the multiple perspectives from different characters. All the Perfect
Ah,
Days just follows
okay.
Charlie's view the whole way
Yeah.
through, whereas this new one follows a few different characters. And I yeah, second draft, and I feel like, God, I might be I might be wrong in this. I feel like I might have avoided those challenges that I had with my second book that we were talking about earlier, where I just hit wall
Yeah,
after wall
good,
after wall. It
good.
feels like now that those walls have just been bulldozed, and I'm coming
Okay.
through now with book
Yay.
number three.
All right, wonderful.
I've got my fingers crossed.
All righty. Well, it sounds like you might be through the worst of it. So that's
I
it
think
sounds
so.
like
I
you'll
think
get to
so.
the finish line. All right, great. Well, folks, when this episode airs, All the Perfect Days will be out, so be sure to order your copy today. You can check out Michael's website at michaelthompson.net.au. Michael, what social media outlets are you most active on?
Instagram is probably
Okay.
best, and you
All
can
right.
find me there. Michael Thompson, author, is probably the best.
Okay.
Same on Facebook, but Instagram is certainly where I am the most active. Michael Thompson,
All
author.
right. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed our conversation. The book was lovely. It was just so, there was so much heart to it. And I know that you mentioned that there was a little bit of a kind of a heavier side to it, but the characters, you did a great job with the characters. I really connected with many of the characters, not just Charlie, but many of the characters in the book. And so I thought you did a great job with that. So well
Thank you.
done.
I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. And thank you for the time today. I really enjoyed the chat.
You bet. Many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Undercurrents of Romance. You can find more information about the show at traceydevlyn.com/podcast. Undercurrents of Romance is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'll be back soon with another great romantic read. In the meantime, enjoy the adventure, everyone.